Hey everyone, in this video, we are going to introduce amino acids and proteins. The specific topics we'll talk about are the different functions of proteins, the structures of amino acids, and then we'll discuss the essential amino acids. And by the end of the video, you should be able to understand the different protein functions and be able to identify the structures of the different amino acids. So proteins are very large molecules in your body, and they are polymers made from repeating units known as amino acids. And there's 20 different amino acids. Now, proteins can vary wildly in both size, shape, and function, depending on the specific amino acids that make it up. There are structural proteins like skin, hair, fingernails, muscles, cartilage. There are also functional proteins like enzymes, which catalyze chemical reactions. And then there's transport proteins like hemoglobin and myoglobin, which transport oxygen throughout your body. And so this chart shows the different classes of proteins versus the functions that they do, and then some examples. So you can have structural proteins, which provide structural support to a body tissue. Some examples of those are collagen, which are found, collagen is like in your skin and in your cartilage and your tendons. Keratin is found in your hair. It's like in sheep's wool, your fingernails. Cow's horns are made of keratin. So really strong materials. You can also have contractile proteins, which are like your muscles, right? They allow your body to move. They contract and relax. You can have transport proteins like hemoglobin and myoglobin, or like we learned about in the last chapter, lipoproteins, right? Things that transport other molecules. You can also have storage proteins, which store energy or different minerals in the body, like ferritin is a protein that stores iron in the liver. Casein stores protein in milk. You can have hormone proteins like oxytocin or insulin or growth hormone. Those are all small proteins that travel throughout the body as signaling molecules. You can have enzymes, which are proteins that catalyze chemical reactions. And then you can have protection proteins as part of your immune system, like antibodies. So many, many different types of proteins that have different functions throughout the body. And we will talk a little bit more about these as we look at the structure of proteins. But let's take a step back and talk about amino acids. So amino acids are named because of the functional groups that they contain. And so if you look at an amino acid, it has an amine group, and then it has a carboxylic acid. And so that's why we call it an amino acid, because it has both an amine and an acid group in the same molecule. And then they also have what we call the side chain. Now, in this example, I've just used R for like the rest of the molecule, but the 20 different amino acids have 20 different groups here as side chains. And that's what makes them different, but they all have this general core structure. And the carbon here in the middle is known as the alpha carbon. It's the middle of the amino acid. Now, I'm just going to jump right into it and show you the structure of all 20 amino acids here. So these are the 20 different naturally occurring amino acids that all proteins are made up of. Now, a protein doesn't necessarily need to have all 20 of these. It can only utilize some of them. Maybe it has all 20. It depends on the specific protein, but these are the building blocks. And if you look, this is the central alpha carbon on all of these structures. And they have the same core, right? They all have this amino acid core. It's the same thing on every single one. That's what makes it an amino acid, right? It's identical. What changes here are these side chains. These are those R groups that we used in the previous example. This is the R group for this one. This is the R group for this one. The R group, side chain, side chain, side chain, right? Now, all of those side chains are different. It's unique for each amino acid, and that's what makes them different is what's sticking off the side that we abbreviated here as R. So everything highlighted in blue is the R group. Okay. And we're going to look at all 20 of these in this video. We can classify these based on the side chains. Now, if the R group is non-polar, meaning it's just hydrocarbons, we call it a non-polar amino acid. If the side chain is polar, then we call it a polar amino acid. If it's acidic, meaning it has a carboxylic acid side chain, call it an acidic amino acid. And if it has an amine side chain, we call it a basic amino acid. And so these four classifications, these 20 will fit one of these four descriptions. So let's take a look. These are the non-polar amino acids here. There's 9 of them. They are glycine, alanine, valine, leucine, isoleucine, phenylalanine, methionine, proline, and tryptophan. Now, all of these amino acids have both a 3-letter and a 1-letter abbreviation. And so shown here in parentheses are those abbreviations. So glycine is abbreviated GLY or just G. Alanine is abbreviated ALA or A. Valine is VAL or V. Now, I don't expect you to memorize these structures. I will provide you a table like this on your exam. So don't memorize these structures. But what I do want you to notice is what they have in common. So in blue is the core amino acid. The R group is highlighted here in yellow. Now, if you notice, everything in yellow is just hydrogens and carbons for the most part. They are non-polar. They don't have any electronegative atoms. There's no dipole moment in these side chains. So we classify these as the non-polar amino acids. Now, the polar amino acids, these 6, all have some electronegative atom in the side chain that gives it a polarity or a dipole. And so notice you have an alcohol, 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 a thiol, an amide, and another amide. All of these are polar side chains, right? The OH, the OH, the OH, the SH, the NH2, the NH2. All of these groups can form hydrogen bonds, except for the thiol, but we'll understand why in a later video, why this one's considered polar. Right. But the important part is there's something electronegative in the side chain that makes it polar. Yeah. The next group are the acidic amino acids. There's only two of them, aspartic acid and glutamic acid. And so they have a carboxylic acid group on the side. So they are acidic amino acids. And then the basic amino acids have an amine group on the side. Highlighted here in blue, and you can see the amine, the amine, the amine. And so these all act as bases. So they are basic amino acids. So nonpolar, polar, acidic, and basic. And that's all 20 of them. Now let's talk about the structure of an amino acid here. When we consider our amino acid, this carbon right here, the alpha carbon, is a chiral center. Remember, a chiral center is a carbon bonded to four different things. There's a hydrogen here that I was omitting, but there's four different groups attached there. H, then H2, the carboxylic acid, and the side chain. Now, chiral centers can exist one of two ways. You can have the NH2 coming towards you, or you can have the NH2 going away from you. And these would be the enantiomers or the stereoisomers of each other. Here we've shown it drawn as Fisher projections. And so as a Fisher projection, you can describe it as L versus D if you're looking at the amine group here. And so L amino acids would have the amine on the left side. D amino acids would have the amine on the right side. As it turns out, all naturally occurring amino acids are the L isomer. Those are the naturally occurring ones. So even though theoretically you could have both enantiomers, this enantiomer does not really exist in nature. Living organisms don't use that version of the amino acids. They can be made in a lab, but living organisms don't utilize them whatsoever. Kind of like how all sugars that naturally occurred were D, while all amino acids that naturally occur are L. Now, of these 20 amino acids that we looked at, highlighted in green are some particularly important ones. So phenylalanine, valine, leucine, isoleucine, methionine, lysine, arginine, histidine, tryptophan, and threonine. These are your essential amino acids. And so what do we mean by essential? Well, your body cannot make them, which means you have to get it from your diet. If you don't get them in your diet, your body can't make proteins that require them, and you'll eventually have bad health effects and possibly die over a long enough period of time. So you have to get those from your diet. They are essential to your life. Some organisms, like bacteria, can synthesize all 20 amino acids. So bacteria don't even need a protein source. They can just eat sugar and turn it into protein. We can't do that. We have to get the protein from our diet. Now, proteins can be described as complete proteins or incomplete proteins. A complete protein, like eggs, milk, meat, fish, those contain all 20 amino acids. An incomplete protein source only contains some of the 20 amino acids, but not all of them. And a lot of plants are incomplete proteins. Now, some plants have certain amino acids, other plants have others. So if you have a vegetarian diet, you just want to make sure you eat a variety of plants to make sure that you're getting all of the essential amino acids. You can't live exclusively on rice or exclusively on, wheat, because eventually you'll get malnourished from the lack of certain amino acids. So if you eat a strictly vegetarian diet, make sure you get a variety of plant sources. But if you are not a vegetarian, meat sources always contain all 20. Meats and eggs are complete proteins. And so that's pretty much it for this video. We were just introducing the structures of the amino acids and the 4 categories: nonpolar, polar, acidic, and basic, depending on what that side chain is in the molecule. And then we talked about the essential amino acids. So thanks for watching. And in the next video, we'll get into a little more detail about proteins.